We're gonna have another easy night tonight. We're just gonna take a gander at some good old-fashioned Netrunner games on Jinteki.net. As always, on the off chance that you happen to see your game streamed here and it makes you feel uncomfortable that some weirdo on the internet is talking about games that you're playing, just shoot me a message. I'll add you to a list, and I will refrain from commenting on your game in the future. That being said, we have no reason to delay. Let's just hop right into the first game of the night. Haley Kaplan versus Sports Metal. Look, I'm just going to say it. I liked Sports Metal before it was cool. Nowadays, Sports Metal is everywhere. But, yeah, alright. Calm down, hipster Chesney. Calm it down there. There were plenty of people who liked Netrunner before it was cool, and you weren't one of them. Alright. Enough self-commentary here. We see Sports Metal looks like has an asset spam deck going, or at least a horizontal deck, puts 3 face down. Kaplan puts down Fence or Fueno, which will be a little bit of help for some of these assets, as well as a Net chip and a Nakamatsu Mem chip. Perhaps she's running the somewhat popularized Maven build, but we'll have to see. The Net chip kind of makes me think it's a Maven build, but who knows. Sports Metal pops Rashida, puts 2 more cards face down, and in between of doing that, drew a card. Making things difficult for Haley. She has to spend 3 clicks if she even wants to check those, and Fencer Fueno is only going to give her 1 credit a turn to trash some of these things down here. However, she plays it cool. She decides to continue to set up. Probably wise on her part. She doesn't really have a lot of money right now, doesn't have the resources to really recklessly check all these servers with no kind of, potential future plan. She hits a team sponsorship. That's going to be a 4 to trash, and that's frustrating to see because you know exactly the kind of HB deck you're going against when you see team sponsorship. She does spend her a second and her final click, a second click running, and it is her final click of the turn to go ahead and hit the server with 2 cards in it. Does see a future is now, which is great for her. Glad to steal that. Prevents HB from just scoring that out whenever they want to and finding a card from their deck, any card they want. Also, a Sansan City Grid is sitting here. Of course, we all know the old, it's like the knight of the old code, that's Sansan City Grid. 6 to res, but lets you fast advance all day, every day. Unsurprisingly, we see 3 more cards hit the table from HB. They revealed that they have a red level clearance in hand, but they decided they didn't want to use that, so they instead just threw down 3 more cards. One of those cards went on top of the... we already know this is a team sponsorship, so this must be an upgrade protecting the team sponsorship. A little bit weird. First click, Haley decides to run and sees a base Cherubog, which is a new card. I'm not really familiar with this one. You just gain a click. Interesting. Kind of. And then decides to go ahead and trash that base Cherubog. Why give the corp extra clicks when they need it? Makes sense. Fencer Fueno was able to donate a credit at least to help with that. She runs this other server, sees another base Cherubog, and then decides to run a 3rd click onto this. I don't know why she did this. She knows this is a team sponsorship, and there's going to be an upgrade here, so this doesn't really make a lot of sense because she doesn't have very much money, just 1 credit, and I don't know like what the point of jumping in here is, because she's just going to see an upgrade, and there aren't many upgrades that you would see in asset spam that you could just trash for a single credit against an unprotected remote, right? Like typically you might see like a like if it was a baddie, like I think isn't Marcus Baddie oh my goodness. Wait, what? Did I read this incorrectly? I'm a fool. No, server 1 is the one with the team sponsorship. This was the Sansan City grid. That makes perfect sense for the runner to go ahead and check that, because it's practically being advertised that that's an agenda with the corp installing something there. Yeah, all these face down servers, my apologies. Had that been the team sponsorship, that would have made no sense, but since that was the server with Sansan in it, it was, right? Did she not access the Sansan? She accessed the research. What am I feel like I'm missing something here. She hit 2 bases, trashed the first one, didn't trash the second one. Made a run on server 3, hit the research grant. For some reason, she didn't access the Sansan. That's not legal, right? I mean, like, it's not going to affect the game. I don't think it really matters, but whatever. It doesn't matter. Game continues on. We see a Hellion beta test being played. This is an interesting one. This is not a card that gets used very often. Play only if the runner trashed an accessed corp card during his or her last turn. Trace 2 if successful. Trash 2 installed non-program cards. If unsuccessful, take 1 bad pub. It's kind of a risky card in general, because it turns into a money contest, right? And there's all this study that's been done on this card, like how much do you bother boosting the trace, because after a certain point, like, the runner might just say, go ahead, trash my cards, because it's less expensive for me to reinstall them than it is for you to have boosted the trace. They could also just fight the trace if they want to. This was a good time to use it, though, because the runner was only down to 2 credits anyway, so the corp just paid a single credit to boost that trace strength to 3, guaranteeing that it would fire, and decided to trash Fueno and wait, Hellion beta test trash 2 non-program cards. I'm a little confused why Trickster Taka left the table. Wait, Hyperscotch just trashed Trickster Taka. Oh, okay. So Taka had too many cards, or sorry, too many credits on it, and instead of taking a tag, the runner decided to go ahead and trash it. And that was because they successfully stole that agenda, which gave Taka an extra credit they probably weren't expecting. That's too bad. I believe Taka can only use credits, yeah, on basically icebreakers. Technically, it's any program. That's more often going to be icebreakers, of course, but any program during a run can take advantage of Taka's credits. Sports Metal installs 2 new cards. Face down. We have a lot of face down cards. Hard to even remember. What is where? Another Rashida fire. So I believe, if we can recall correctly this time, we have a team sponsorship, a Sansan, a base Cheerbog, which is the free click for 3 credits card, and then an unknown card here, plus another new card, which is just advanced assembly lines, which is just going to generate HB more credits and an install. Goes into the unknown server. So you'd have to assume one of these is an agenda, or sorry, you would have, it's likely one of these is an upgrade. Technically they could both be upgrades. We saw Cheerbog, used, and res for free, actually. Team sponsorship flipped, which is going to allow the Corp to pull any card out of archives they want, which is just disgusting on its own. But it also lets them install it immediately. They decide to install advanced assembly lines, using it immediately, allowing them to install yet another card. From HQ, though, only. Another face-down server created. I feel like I'm just going to be saying that a lot in this game, due to the horizontal nature of this HB deck. Unfortunately, this isn't a terribly exciting sports metal deck. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it by any means, but it's your very standard horizontal HB deck. The only spicy thing we saw was the Hellion beta test, which I can kind of see making sense in an asset spam deck, because you're going to assume that the runner is going to be poor a bit, trashing your assets, which should open up, you know, the chance for a successful Hellion beta test. You typically don't expect traces to come out of HB. There are a couple HB decks that run tag and boom, or, you know, goofy things like that, but typically you don't see traces come out of HB. So the runner wouldn't normally be afraid of running low on credits, especially against horizontal decks where they aren't necessarily thinking about trashing, or sorry, breaking through ice. Dropping low on credits wouldn't necessarily be a terrible, an unforgivable thing, sort of like it is against NBN. Anyway, the runner runs all the servers here, sees a Sansan city grid in 9 and a Breaker Bay in 10. Kind of surprised that the Corp didn't install the Sansan in one of these Breaker Bay servers. I'm sure you know, but of course, Breaker Bay lets you res anything in the server for free. Well, technically not for free. It lowers the cost by 5, but that is virtually free. Sansan being one of the few cards that sees regular play that is more expensive than 5 credits. It's not looking good for Haley. Haley did pop a hyperdriver on the last turn, but spent a lot of those turns drawing, it looks like, and just clicking up for credits, which is not a great use of hyperdriver. You have to think you're only gaining, if you use a hyperdriver and then pop it to click for 3 credits, you're only up a credit, because it costs a click to install the card, and the card itself costs a credit on its own. The Rozeki is trying, but here, generating a single credit, of course, each turn. What is that? Hold on. I think this is coming from my cell phone? Oh yeah. I have an escape room game that just decided to start playing music. I thought I was going insane there. Okay. But yeah, Rozeki is trying to pull as much weight as it can. You know, a single credit a turn is just not going to be quite enough. Especially against the onslaught of all these assets that are already on the board and going to be coming right on back out of archives due to team sponsorship. We see a lot more reses. Oh, that is disgusting. And Arella Salvatore inside a Sansan City Grid. We saw an Arella Salvatore deck the other day and already concluded that it's a pretty good card. It's synonymous in some ways to Sansan, but a server with Sansan and Arella Salvatore, effectively allowing you to install an agenda when you score an agenda, putting it in the Arella Salvatore server, putting a token on it, and then lowering the advancement token cost by 1, effectively means you could score a 3-2 out of hand for free, spending literally nothing, which would trigger the effect again, allowing you to then again score another 3-2 agenda for free, or 3-1. In fact, if you wanted to score the Future Is Now in that manner, search your deck for an agenda for another Future Is Now, you could just score all 3 Future Is Nows for free. Well, of course, you have to pay 8 credits to res both Arella and Sansan. But that's the dream, right? Anyway, the runner decides to check server 11 and trashes a team sponsorship, it looks like. That's a tough choice. I think it was probably the wrong call to do that. Runner accesses a base Churabog on server 6 and goes ahead and pays the credits to trash that. This is kind of the slippery slope that is asset spam, or fighting against asset spam, I should say. They trashed the team sponsorship here, but if you're going to trash one team sponsorship, I feel like you should go after all of them. You can't go halfway. You either have to attempt to shut down HB from getting all their stuff back completely, or you just don't contest it at all and let them do their thing, and you save up all that money to actually do what you want to do. Yeah, see, here's the combo. Install Advance. Oh my gosh, and because he's Sports Medal, every time he scores one of these agendas, he either gets to take 2 credits or draw 2 cards, which of course is also going to increase the chance of locating an agenda to keep the combo running. So team sponsorship installs team sponsorship, right, from archives. See, this is the problem. The runner should not have trashed the single team sponsorship because it just got reinstalled right away again. Tranquility Home Grid gaining 2 credits for free for the install itself. So we see the corp immediately going up from, 0 credits to 4 credits. This is after they've scored an agenda. Now, they did install a card here, and they advanced it and didn't score it. So one has to wonder what that even is. You would assume they would just, if it was a the Future Is Now, they would have just straight up scored it. So the runner's going to draw up 3 times and then run that server. And they see a Hyperloop extension. Maybe this Sports Medal deck only runs to the Future Is Now. Still, in this exact scenario, I almost feel like you would want to run all 3. Just for that combo that we were talking about. So that where you score one of them, you can just score all 3 all at once. And every time you score one of those 3, you could have Sports Medal draw more cards until you hit another agenda. Preferably a 3-2 or a 3-1. This whole... I know I said earlier this is just a standard asset spam HB deck, but now I kind of see where this deviates from the standard sort of team sponsorship, recursion, breaker bay, res for free strategy. It's this Arella Salvatore Sansan City Grid combo coupled with the Sports Medal interaction on each and every score that they're getting from this combo. Surprisingly, I feel like our runner friend here is doing a lot better than I would have expected. The score is 3-3, but the runner just has nothing really going for them. Like, no forward momentum on their side of the table, aside from a single Rizeki. Whereas nearly, the entire engine is set up over here. The only thing the Corp has to do is just res that second team sponsorship before they score the next agenda, and they'll be pulling 2 of these things out of their archives, one of them probably an advanced assembly line, which if you really wanted to, you could pull the Tranquility home grid, res it, and then pull the advanced assembly line, just to get paid even more to do it. Oh, asset spam. Part of me is happy it's in the game, and the other part of me regrets it completely. But 2 more cards, 2 more remotes on the side of our Corp friend. And a single click for a credit will pass it back to Haley. Haley has to decide what she wants to do here. She doesn't really have the money to contest the assets. She just has to let them go. At this point, the Corp is dangerously close to winning from that snowball combo that we've been blabbing about. Goes ahead and checks the servers. Okay, hits a Rashida. And that's still probably worth a click and a credit. Goes ahead and runs the second mystery remote, and that is a Jeeves model Biroid. That is going to be far too much for the runner to trash, and is just going to enable the Corp to do even more shenanigans on their turn. Runner decides to click for a credit. Now, here's effectively... Obviously, I'm no master Netrunner player, but here's effectively, I think, the biggest flaw in Haley's strategy so far. R&D has been open every single turn for the last 10 turns. There's almost no reason why this Haley could not check R&D every single turn. R&D is going to be a card that not even the Corp knows what it is. And so there's a decent chance of pulling agendas there. You also know you're playing against Sports Metal. Sports Metal wants to run pretty much all 1-point agendas. The only exception... No, we don't even see any exceptions here. These are literally all 1-point agendas, which means their agenda density is going to be very high. So there's even the chance that you hit R&D, steal an agenda, hit R&D again, get another agenda. Obviously that's just, comes down to random chance, but it's not irrational to think that that's a possibility. Now, unfortunately, we see the score of the, or fortunately, if you're rooting for the Corp, we see the score of the Mega Prix qualifier, which is going to allow the trigger on team sponsorship, a ton more cards, hit the table. The Corp apparently made a mistake, accidentally needed the base card on the table so that they could click it for an extra click. They're not going to be able to do that. The runner finally starts hitting R&D here, hits a Warroid tracker, and decides to trash it for 4. That's fine. At this point, she's just digging through R&D. It's not like the Warroid tracker is terrifying or something. She's just trying to get into R&D to see more cards. Hit something that either she can't trash or isn't trashable. And that's probably game. Since she's drawing a lot of cards, and I don't understand this. Like, she ran, drew a card, and ran. Typically, in most scenarios, it's a good habit to draw your cards before you take any of your actions. If you know you're going to draw a card, and if there are certain exceptions, of course, like if you expect to take meat damage or net damage, and you specifically want to get rid of the cards that are in your hand currently, there are times where maybe you'll run and then draw cards, but typically you're supposed to draw your cards first. So that way you know what all of your potential variables are. It doesn't really matter, though. The Corp just goes ahead and scores the card in server 3. Project Vacheron installs yet another card using Arella Salvatore. And, do we have a concede? Or did we have a win by points? Oh, no. It's just a win by points. The team sponsorship triggers had to be resolved. The Corp is actually apologizing because they kept messing up the combo. They said they whiffed so hard. And they did in a couple of scenarios. They installed this Project Vacheron in a completely open server and didn't have the base to activate it. Our runner didn't quite realize that was the case, though. And that's fine. But perhaps could have read into when the Corp said they were whiffing so hard, needed the base on the board. It ended up not mattering. Both players probably just kind of learning how to play with and play against each deck. This is interesting. The Haley has a rebirth? I didn't see that from earlier. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think you typically want to rebirth in Haley. If you build your deck to take advantage of Haley's ID ability, there aren't a lot of rebirth scenarios that you would want to actually use. It is a pity that Fueno got trashed so early. That was the perfect time to have it. Turn 1, Fueno against an asset spam deck. That's just another credit each turn that would have assisted for trashing those assets. But I know the wording on that is a little weird. It says, when your turn begins... Okay, hold on. Whenever you make a successful run, you may spend hosted credits for the remainder of that run. Technically, if there was something else to spend those credits on after the run is successful, you can spend them on whatever. But most of the time I look at that and think, okay, that allows you to spend them on trashing things, since that's the probably the most common scenario. Misdirection wasn't very useful in this matchup. I'm not sure what Haley's deck was going for. Just kind of seems like random shaper cards. But yeah, this sports metal deck seems like a monster. There's not even any ice in it. I think that's the worst part. It's a legitimate strategy because it's completely legal. But I always cringe a little bit when I see a Corp deck without ice. Makes me think something is degenerate. Okay. Let's jump into our next game. We see Smoke versus... Well, we thought we were out of the asset spam realm from the last game, but nope, it's coming right back to us. NBN controlling the message. Arguably one of the stronger, if not the strongest NBN ID, although GameNet has been doing some pretty heavy lifting lately. Uh-oh. Did us joining crash the server? I hope not. Well, I don't know if the game is going to continue. Our Corp may be locked up. We don't see them responding here. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. Regardless, we can analyze the little bit of information we already have. It is CTM, so you're going to expect a lot of cards that the runner wants to trash, but is going to be disincentivized to do so due to CTM's Trace on trash. Trace 4. That is just so strong. It had to be Trace 4 though, because when it came out, there were some pretty easy ways to get, 1 or 2 link. So they just made it a Trace 2. It would be pretty weak. Even a Trace 3. Sunny would look at that and laugh. Yeah, I don't know if we're going to get to see this game, unfortunately. I'm going to duck out. I hope us joining didn't screw things up somehow. I don't think that's a thing. Unfortunately, we'll have to join this one, which is a little more... We're in turn 5. We didn't get to catch the beginning, but that's fine. Okay, we see Jinteki replicating perfection versus Apex? What? Okay, guys, I believe in off-meta strats. Okay? I want to believe. But guys, I have tried so hard in so many different ways to justify the use of Apex. And I can't do it. I don't think Apex is good at anything. I think he's literally the worst runner in the game. He's worse than Nat. I mean, at least Nat has a small deck size. Oh gosh, is Faust back in the game? No, surely Faust isn't legal. Maybe these guys are just playing a friendly match. Regardless, let's take a look at the board state. We do see 2 agendas, 2 2-pointers on the side of Apex, and none on our Corp side, so perhaps Apex will stand a chance here. As far as setup for Apex, he does have his signature breaker, which is going to allow him to get through any subroutine that only says "end the run." And, well, what do you know? Thimble Rig actually qualifies for that, so Endless Hunger can get through Thimble Rig. The caveat being, and the real problem why Endless Hunger is just bad, is because if the subroutine says anything else other than end the run, Endless Hunger can't break it. And that would make sense for things like give the runner tags, deal meat damage, play a side game. But if it says end the run unless the runner pays a credit, which like pop-up window, technically Endless Hunger can't break that. Now, of course, Apex is probably just going to pay the single credit, but there are other examples of subroutines that end the run but have conditionals. And because of those conditionals, Endless Hunger cannot break them. It's so frustrating. Oh my goodness, what is happening here? Apex does a run on R&D, sees a Thimble Rig, has it boomeranged, which is kind of funny, but whatever. This is why I swear up and down you should never boomerang an unresed piece of ice. If I was the Corp, I never would have resed this. I just would have let that boomerang sit there all day. Anyway, Apex did break it with their face down card using Endless Hunger, gets in, sees a viral weaponization, putting them on game point. Quite impressive. Now, replicating perfection, of course, going to prevent the runner from running any of these remotes until they've made a run on a central server. We see a reboot coming out of Apex that's going to allow them to grab all these cards out of archives and install them face down. Actually, a very, very powerful card for Apex. It seems silly, right? You're like, oh, whoa, you just run archives and get 5 face down cards? What do I do with that? Apex can actually do a decent amount of things with that. It still doesn't save him from being like, I don't know, guys. Link me to an Apex deck that you like if you want to try to defend Apex. Otherwise, he's got to be the worst tier runner. So you know what? Macho points for this guy for even playing him. Anyway, runner decides to go into HQ. Corp doesn't bother rezzing. There's nothing in HQ. So I assume Apex made that run to do what? Do they have Apocalypse? No, why would they? They already made a run on Archives. I don't think they needed to make a run on HQ. Did I miss something? Did they do it for the... Did they just do it for the turning wheel counter? Yeah, not really sure. Anyway, wait, what? Oh, our corp friend decided to concede, sorry. Secede. They seceded from Netrunner. No, they conceded their game. They ran into a tour guide. But Endless Hunger got fueled at the perfect time due to that reboot run. All right, let's count, right? Tour guide gains end the run for each rezzed asset. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Come on, Chesney, you can count. 7, 8. That's hilarious. So Apex can trash their 7 face down cards and either trash the boomerang or the turning wheel and break all of those subs. Is this like the one shining game we see where Apex looks like an actual invasive predator? Because funny enough, I mean, you know, technically all those subroutines on tour guides say end the run. Funny enough, Endless Hunger can get through that. It's not great. You don't want to spend 8 face down cards. But in this exact scenario, you can do it. That's madness. I cannot believe we just saw an Apex win. Against Replicating Perfection, no less. RP is no pushover. There for a while, they were like the competitive ID for Jinteki, the faction Jinteki, not the website, but probably the website at one point. Wouldn't surprise me. Anyway, a lot of this was just standard Replicating Perfection stuff. Turtlebacks for free money. Hostile infrastructure for the prison. Jeeves, because why not? Oh my goodness, they even had a team sponsorship. They went that deep into HB. I guess that makes sense because Jeeves is free if you have enough influence-wise. If you have enough HB cards in your deck. Of course, bioethics, pinging 1 damage per turn. Sundew is an auto-include. Genetics Pavilion, I think that's not completely uncommon. But I think if we were going to see any card here on the table that was more unique as compared to the others, I think it would be Genetics Pavilion. It's certainly not a bad card in this kind of deck, but I don't think it's necessarily an auto-include. Of course, it just prevents the runner from drawing 2 cards on his or her turn. It can be very frustrating, especially when you think about Hostile Infrastructure dealing 2 damage, Bioethics dealing a single damage. So if the runner comes in here and wants to trash even one of these Hostile Infrastructures, they're already taking 3 damage on the turn, and they can only draw 2 of them back. It's not a major effect, and it becomes worse the more RP gets sets up, right? So like, imagine a world where the runner runs in, hits a snare, and then is faced with the difficult decision of whether or not they actually try to contest these things, knowing that they're going to take more damage from Hostile Infrastructure, and they can only draw up 2 cards to replenish any of that HP. I'm getting sidetracked. Interesting game. Interesting that Apex won. Let's move on. Oh no. We can see their cards. Okay, so like, I guess technically somebody could tune into the stream and cheat right now. But let's be honest, so few people watch this stream that I'm not gonna worry about it. But yeah, interesting. We're gonna get to see the actual cards this time. So we'll get a little bit more insight into what each side is doing. So a Haley deck, of course, wants to take advantage of those free installs, and then an Earth Station deck. It's a little more complicated than this, but really quickly we can just say that Earth Station Waylands typically just want one remote, and only one remote through the entire game. Typically. Pretty early in the game, only on turn 2, Wayland has Ice on HQ, Ice on a remote, and a single advance card. Now double advance. Will we see the triple? Yeah, so it must be an agenda. A Cyberdeck Sandbox. What? Why is that in this deck? Okay, well. Cyberdeck Sandbox is, what is it called? Credit neutral when you score it? Because effectively, when you score it, it purges virus counters. And while it's in your score area, you gain 4 credits when you purge virus counters, and it costs 4 credits to advance. So it's credit neutral. And its effect isn't terrible, especially if you're going against a virus runner. But I don't see any direct synergy just yet with these cards. We'll have to wait and see. Maybe we'll see something. It looks like Haley is running the typical spec work, Harbinger, Aesops. This is definitely an Aesops deck. You'll never see Harbinger in a Shaper deck that doesn't want to sell it. Although poor Haley has not drawn their Aesops yet. That's got to be a little frustrating. And double ladies, that's just annoying. But they have a bit of money here, and they do have professional contacts, and Beth. So they're going to be generating a nice amount of credits here. So when they do draw into the things they need, they'll be able to hopefully have a nest egg available to install them. Court puts another piece of ice behind, another card in the remote behind the single piece of ice, as well as an upgrade on HQ and a piece of ice to protect R&D. Wise thing to do against Shaper. Although because we can see Haley's hand, we know she's probably not going to be running HQ anytime soon. It really looks like she's probably going to want to get set up a lot here. 2 pro cons is finally going to get us to see that Aesop's pawn shop. And now we can really get things rolling here. We even see a fan site. So I wonder what we'll be spending those fake agenda cards on. Of course, fan site added to your score area when the corp scores an agenda as an agenda worth 0 points. So typically it's used to barter as a fake agenda. I don't know why we have a face down card right here. That makes me nervous. I think that might be a mistake, but that's fine. Sweeps Week got added back into the game. Draws as many cards. Sorry, oh, no. Excuse me. Gains a credit for as many cards are in the runner's grip. Since Haley does have 6 cards somehow. Why does Haley have 6 cards in hand? I must have missed something. Oh, it's Haley's turn. I completely already missed the corpse turn. Yeah, the corpse basically used wall-to-wall to trigger 3 effects, played Sweeps Week, drew another card, and iced up HQ again. That's curious. I think that might have been... Why the Archer on HQ? We can see in here there are no agendas. If I was the runner and I saw the corp put another piece of ice here, I would think that perhaps they were agenda flooded, but there's no agendas in here. Perhaps the runner is getting some weird visual effects on their end. They're seeing double dogs installed. I've seen that bug before when I've played. Oh, hey, Dunge. There's no real synergy with Sandbox. It's just a crap load of money when you purge. And when you lose all your money, you can go up to 4 instead of 3. Yeah, that is a pretty nice effect. It's a little bit like Gila Hands in that regards. Just kind of getting you a little bit more money. One extra credit, which can certainly be relevant. Is project the flip so it is cheaper to run the remotes. Well, to certainly see. Now, it looks like it goes back. The runner's gonna just kind of work through whatever visual errors are happening on their client. Decides to go ahead and run into HQ, and this is kind of what I was saying. If I was the runner, I would really think there were agendas in HQ. But of course, we know there isn't. There's an archer here, and Afshar gets rezzed without any decoders on the table, and that just fires, effectively discounting the res cost by 2. So a single credit to end the run seems pretty good on the corpse side. Wall-to-Wall fires all of its abilities and gets, what it was, a return to hand. No, they just overwrote Wall-to-Wall when they installed Hostile Takeover. Of course, gaining them a net of 5 credits, but passing a bad pub off to Haley. I think more importantly, it turns on Archer, allowing the Corp to pitch Hostile if they should want to res the Archer. A lot of cards in Haley's hand, but that's partly due to the Hyperdriver giving her an extra 3 clicks to deal with them. She's getting very set up, I think is how I describe that. I think maybe the Scrubber was unnecessary, especially with the Fueno. I feel well, but I suppose you could just install the Fueno and then sell it, right? So maybe that's not quite as redundant as I think. You have the luxury of doing that when you run an Aesop's deck. Back over to the Corp, we see 2 more cards hitting the remote, as well as a click for a credit, probably just to bide time since they didn't have anything better to do. And they want to be able to generate enough money to threaten the reses on these cards. Especially, oh gosh, especially the Sansan City Grid, which is going to be expensive. Now here's a run on HQ on a live Archer. We do see the Hostile Takeover pitched to res Archer. That's going to hurt if Haley didn't have the Nana K. The Nana K isn't going to be too bad to trash that, or sorry, to break those subroutines. Seeing as it has a strength of 3, so it's just 7 credits. I mean, it's not great, but when you consider the fact that it is an Archer, it kind of makes sense. Looks like the runner's pausing to decide whether or not they want to What are they doing? I mean, what choice is there? I think you just have to break these because you can't afford to just let programs get trashed. Although, oh, okay, we see an SMC popped to install Palangi. It's going to allow Haley probably to paint this as a barrier. Yeah. Okay, which is going to let Lady chew through it pretty quickly. They hit the Afshar and decide to... they approach the Afshar and decide to jack out before actually hitting it. Okay. Interesting. I think wouldn't you just want to go through? But it's a code gate, so that she can't actually get through it, and she didn't have a decoder installed. She has a decoder in hand. But once she had to use the Palangi to paint Archer, there was no going back at that point. Funnily enough, we know there are no agendas in here. There are also no agendas in this remote. Just another wall-to-wall and a Sansan. But there's no res on the remote ice. And hey, I was making fun of Scrubber. But I spoke too soon. Scrubber and Fencer Fueno cutting the cost of trashing that Sansan grid in half. Sorry, more than in half. It's 5 to trash. Haley goes ahead and also pays to trash the wall-to-wall. So I guess it's more like the wall-to-wall was free and the Sansan still costs the 5. Haley did have quite a few credits, but after breaking through Archer and paying all those trash costs, she's down to 7. Another piece of ice goes on the remote, and an advanced corporate sales team top-decked by the Corp. It's going to be a little hard to threaten the res on these. Corp only has 6 credits, but both of these cost 4 to res. The runner also has a Lady installed, so if they run this remote with at least 2 clicks, the Corp can't guarantee to keep the runner out. And even if they resed the border control... Yeah, see, I think the Corp just reses the Mausolus here, and then lets the runner in, because if they res border control and trash it to force the end to run, the runner just comes back in. And even if the runner ran on the last click, and the Corp res this and trashed it to end the run and swap it back over to their turn, they wouldn't have the money, right, to triple advance the corporate sales team. So I think this was a little risky on the Corp's part. I'm a little confused. They had a very protected HQ with both of these pieces of ice resed. Instead, the Corp decides to not res either. I mean, that's their choice. I feel like maybe you res the Mausolus just to tax the runner, at least a Palangi token, and maybe some Lady tokens. Or probably a single Lady token. But okay, they wanted to save their money. It looks like that was because, of course, they wanted to have enough money to pay for hedge fund. And if they dropped to 2 credits, they would have to click up 3 times, wasting their entire turn before they could even play the next hedge fund. Or I guess, as Dunch pointed out, they wouldn't click up 3 times, they just purge virus tokens and gain 4 credits in the process. The Palangi counter would have already been spent, though, in our imaginary scenario. Regardless, yeah, I think that was a little gutsy on the part of the Corp. They probably should have just held onto that agenda in hand with the 2 pieces of ice they had on HQ to protect it. Gotten a little bit more money before they tried that. But hey, I think we've all been there. Haley goes in for a triple use of Procon. Installs a misdirection. What? Is that just for the Aesop cell? I think that's probably all that is. Yeah. Right. Well, no. I'm overlooking Haley's ability. So the misdirection install also allows the SMC install. And yeah, misdirection is probably just going to get sold. The corp has to go check the door, which is great because it gives us a little bit of a breathing room to kind of reanalyze the state of the game. So Haley's pretty much set up at this point. She has her ASOMs running. She can start selling some of these things off. Procon hit the table fairly early, which has definitely helped her maintain the money advantage. It's not really even an advantage, though, because she's down to 7 credits. She's kind of poor. Early on, she had those daily casts, and Procon really helped her out. But there hasn't been a lot of other money coming her way. Does her deck not run spec work? Or has she just been so unlucky that she hasn't drawn it? Maybe she just doesn't run spec work. You don't have to use spec work in a deck like this. I just assume that the runner does when I see Harbinger. The hyperdrivers seem to just sort of be forward momentum cards that also stand to trigger Haley's ability. When you think about it, like, you could install any of your programs and then also throw down a hyperdriver for a single credit just to gain 3 more clicks on the next turn. There's a certain amount of synergy with that. Otherwise, though, where'd our other dog go? I think this is where the other dog went. I don't know why it's floating over here. Maybe the runner will notice that. Harmony AR Therapy, kind of a pseudo replacement for Levy AR. Only instead of getting all your cards back, you only get 5 unique cards back. We'll have to see if Haley makes good use of that. She probably will. For 2 credits, you can pull 5 more junk cards out of your bin. Maybe even pull the Harbingers. Just to fuel ASOPs. Because she'd just be able to install 2 of them for free, right? Or I shouldn't say for free. After a Levy AR, she could throw down one of them and trigger her ability to install the other, effectively fueling ASOPs for another 4 turns. Is that worth it, though? You spend 2 clicks and 2 credits from AR, plus another click because you had to play AR. So 5 net resources to gain 12. I mean, it's a net positive for sure. It's just not lucrative, I think is the word I'm looking for, especially because it takes 4 turns to pay out. Perhaps she'll find better use pulling back things like Palangi. Oh, and what am I saying? Of course, you can't pull back multiple Harbingers with AR because you have to pull out 5 unique cards. Plus you have to draw them again. Of course, with Procon, that makes that a little more agreeable. I still don't know what these fan sites are for. But I've been avoiding talking about the big one. The Stargate. The Stargate's a pretty spicy include. I like this. I know I've been focusing mostly on the runner because that's just because she has the most cards on the table right now. But the Stargate's going to be a spicy include. I foresee the way this going down is Haley tries to contest this remote. The court reinforces the remote, and then she just goes, fine. I didn't want your remote or HQ anyway, throws the Stargate down and just starts hammering R&D. And at that point, the Corp has already invested cards and resources into protecting these two servers, so this server is hopefully completely open. But there's already an Aket here with 2 advancement tokens on it. Once it gets its 3rd, the runner will only ever be able to break one of these subroutines. Still, though, it's only an Aket. Lady breaks through this for a single token. That's the other thing AR Therapy can do, is bring back ladies after they've spent their tokens and been sold off by Aesops. Fueno sitting with 3 credits here. It's going to either need to be used or... Now this is interesting. I actually wrote up a review on Netrunner DB about Fueno. And unlike Taka, it's somewhat acceptable to keep Fueno around if you have 3 more credits on it. Because you look at it and you think, oh no, I have to lose a credit because Fueno has 3 credits on it. But when you actually think about it, you're losing a credit, but Fueno is still gaining a credit. So as long as you spend Fueno's credits eventually, you're not actually losing any money. The problem is, though, is how often is Haley going to be trashing things on this side of the server? We only see 1 upgrade. Now, the Chrysium grid is not insignificant, because one Chrysium grid would wipe out Fueno's credits. Plus, the Scrubber is going to help with that. What else do we have in archives here? Wall to Wall is 3. Sansan, that expensive 5. Warroid. Been seeing a lot of Warroids tonight, which is interesting. Let's try to do a bit better of an analysis on the corpse cards. We have, of course, Mausolus and Border Control. Mausolus is just a nice card out of Wayland in general. And Border Control, pretty obvious the shenanigans you can get into with that card. Another Mausolus and another Border Control in HQ means we have options as far as our ice placement goes. Preemptive action is interesting. Why is there preemptive action? It's not a bad card just kind of in general. Like, you don't have to have a super good reason to put preemptive action in your corp deck. But generally you have cards that you want to be cycling back into your R&D. Now I guess it does have synergy with Border Control. If you spend your Border Controls to end the run, you could preemptive action them back into R&D. But aside from recurring your assets, I don't know what else you would want to really preemptive back in. Preemptive, I think, when I think of preemptive, I think of decks that want to run a lot of traps. A lot of Jinteki decks will use preemptive. Effectively, decks that have cards that they want to spend, that they want to get back into their deck. Or decks that want to stall will oftentimes use preemptive. This poor guy. Taking quite a while to come back from whatever had to run to go check his door for. We'll dash out here if things don't pick up in a minute or so. I think we've analyzed all the fun bits of the current game state. I guess we do see on Audacity we haven't really mentioned. not a whole lot to say about that other than it's a nice way to kind of speed up that last part of the corpse game-winning move. It's not that you can't use Audacity before the last turn or before the last agenda is scored, but typically Audacity is used to score that last agenda. At that point, it doesn't matter that you pitch your hand. Oh, nice. The corp has come back. We'll have to see if the runner's still here. I'm glad. I was looking forward to seeing the conclusion of this one. Alright, so we do see the second border. Was that an override? An override on Mausolus. I mean, okay, you save yourself a credit by doing that, right? But is that the right call? Why overwrite the Mausolus? Why install the Mausolus if you're just going to overwrite it? I think it's the question. Now that it's the runner's turn to come back and take a look at the game state. But yeah, okay, the Cyber Deck Sandbox. We can at least definitively say that the Corp can res both these pieces of ice, but they've put themselves in this same awkward situation where they probably needed to wait. Oh, looks like the Corp left. Yeah, it's okay. Really quickly, we can analyze that piece of it, and then we'll jump to a new game. But the Corp put themselves in that same situation that they don't want to be in, where, sure, they've got an agenda here, and yes, they have the money to res both these pieces of ice. But if they res both these ice, they don't have the money to actually advance Cyberdecks. I think in a perfect world, well, it's not exactly perfect, but in a world where you want this to be your strategy, you want to do this with 12 credits. Because, assumedly, you know, you plan on resing both these border controls to keep the runner out. So let's assume the runner, you know, thinks, oh, maybe there's a border control on these. So they run with 2 clicks remaining, and they hit the border control, and they're like, ha! I've got another click for that, and then they hit this border control, and then they're like, crap. And they've already spent lady tokens to get through, and you just end the run, and they don't go back in a second time knowing that you can just trash the border control. Or maybe they do go in a second time to force you to trash border control, but either way, you need 12 credits to do this. Because even if the runner comes in here and exactly what we described happens, where the Corp trashes both of these, they're suddenly down to 0 credits. I guess they just sit there awkwardly. Oh well, that's fine. It would be ridiculous to say that I have never made suboptimal choices in a Netrunner game. I think that's the only choices I make when I play Netrunner. It's so easy to comment on people's strategies, but it's a whole different beast when you're playing. We're pretty late into this one, turn 9. But surprisingly, there's not a lot of cards on the table for the runner. Turn 9? Just judging on the board state, this feels almost like turn 3. Anyway, it is Kate, so it must be a friendly game. So I don't believe Kate is legal. Versus the old original NBN deck. 2 extra credits for traces. You know, just looking at these cards, this looks like a core set game. Although Psychographics wasn't in the original core, was it? But they added it back in to the revised core, didn't they? But yeah, Anonymous Tip? It's not often a card you see. This is very much a core game. It's probably why we see Kate, even though technically she's only part of the old core. Oh, sorry, Drunch. I missed you here. I think it could work. How much does... Audacity, I think, costs nothing. You just have to have 3 cards in hand to play it, including Audacity. So effectively, you have to have 2 extra cards in HQ, and then you pitch them all to put 2 advancement tokens on a card. Typically, people use it to fast advance. Oh, we see a breaking news. Oh, what? It's been a long time since I've seen that. This looks like Korean, I think is what this is. This looks like 2 Korean players. It was kind of nice, though, to see the hard-hitting news into Boom. That was fun. It's been far too many years, right, since we've seen that combo. Frankly, I think I'm okay with not seeing it anymore. Oh, fewer and fewer games as the night goes on, but we'll still keep trying to find something. Is this the old game we already saw? Yeah, this is... Actually, we're pretty deep into this one. We just see a good game called out. Let's see if we can leave and catch a newly created game. We'll sit here and wait a little bit. Oh, well, that was fast. We're going to see Haley versus Builder of Nations. Of course, Builder of Nations dealing that annoying meat damage every time you end an encounter with a piece of ice with an advancement token on it. Haley needs no introduction tonight, getting that extra install action. Court begins their turn with an Ice Hedge Fund. Well, technically Hedge Fund Ice, but you get the picture. Very standard, very strong turn 1 opening from Corpse. Haley just wants to set up. Diesel Shore Gambles throws down a Procon. Nice early Procon. Followed by net chips. We'll have to see what things she wants to install on those net chips. I keep expecting a Maven. We haven't seen it tonight. Perhaps we won't. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that is true. They could have Audacity. But Audacity only puts 2 counters on the card, so where would they get the 3rd one? Would they click for a credit, advance, and then Audacity? I guess I could have done it like that. No, you're right. Yeah, thank you. That's true. See, some idiot who has God vision, myself, and I still miss things from the last game since we could see the player's hands. I think that's what makes Netrunner so much fun. There's so many things going on. There's always something to improve on or something to learn. All right. What do we have going on here? What's the game state? We see a remote created by Wayland and a double advance behind a piece of ice. A second piece of ice. Haley with the Deus Ex. could potentially get through a killer. Or rather, anything that deals damage would be an AP type. Now there's a combo with this, right? Oh, there's the Maven. I can't remember precisely what the combo is, but it involves painting something with the AP type so that you can use Deus Ex to break it, guaranteed effectively. I don't think it's Palangi, because I don't think... Can Palangi paint AP? I thought Palangi could only do the base 3, but I could be wrong on that. We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, the double advance card ended up just being an NGO front. So the Corp decides to cash in on that and then throws another card in the remote, double advancing it. Could just be another NGO, but now that they have some money, it's also just as likely to be an agenda, since they can threaten the res on this ice. Haley triple Procons, throwing down a technical writer, and we'll have to see what other resource. Technical writer and a data folding. Now, I've talked about this before, and I don't want to harp on it too much, but I feel like data folding is just kind of... It's kind of a bad card. It's very, very slow. You have to be in a game that's going to last quite a long time before it starts paying itself off. Paying itself off compared to other neutral economy cards. Typically, Daily Cast and Hedge Funder is going to be better. Anyway, in the server was actually a global food initiative. Kind of a pity as the Corp that you had to score what is essentially a blank agenda. But at the same time, are you really going to be that unhappy that you have 3 points? Probably not. Since Haley is just doing what Shapers do and just setting up forever over here, the Corp goes ahead and just installs another card in the remote, as well as an upgrade, assumedly, and advances what also assumedly is an agenda. Of course, this could be 2 upgrades. I feel like I always have to say that it technically could be 2 upgrades, or maybe just an upgrade and another asset, like another NGO front. Pachantra, yeah, that's right. That's the one that paints things AP. I can never remember how to pronounce it. Pachachantra. I think that's why I never remember what the card is. Anyway, making good choices, our Corp friend is, by just recognizing that Haley is kind of playing solitaire right now. She hasn't made a single run as far as I know. And just scores an Atlas token along with the agenda itself. Haley needs to take action. Effectively, the Corp is at game point, and the Corp hasn't even needed to use their ID ability. None of this ice is advanced. We are literally watching 2 games of solitaire right now. But the onus is on the runner to not turn this into a game of solitaire, effectively. I mean, all of this is great in a vacuum, right? Like, there is a lot of money coming in here off the back of these cards. Rozeki's gaining 2 credits. Data Folding is gaining a credit, which I know I complained about it being slow, but yes, technically it's still drawing in money. We have 2 tech writers able to be popped whenever that money is needed. Dunch is suggesting that this is an E3 feedback deck, and that's probably accurate. You just pay 2 credits to break something with Maven and then E3 your way through. That has been a popular combo lately. Ever since they added E3 back into the game. Since Maven is kind of expensive if you have to break multiple subs, 2 credits is not what you want to be spending to break any subroutine, generally. And E3 helps offset that. Double SMCs, so we're going to be able to find whatever programs we want. You have to assume that the Corp has a, oh gosh, what is it? Mass commercialization, due to the fact that they advanced these 3 pieces of ice manually, I believe, and they're down to 2 credits. Kind of seeing this as a weakness, but the Corp doesn't have the money to res this ice. She goes ahead and runs the remote to possibly take out this upgrade. Hopefully without running into any opposition. Indeed, neither of these pieces of ices are res. Hits a Prisec, loses Rebirth, and that's fine. Again, there must be some... This is not the first time we've seen Rebirth in Haley. What am I missing here? Why are all these Haleys running Rebirth? Again, I feel like you typically want... If you're going to build your deck around Haley's ability, why would you Rebirth into something? You typically Rebirth if you're someone like Val. The double Scorched Earth. Yes, they added Scorched Earth back into the game. Commercialization. Where'd the tag come from? Project Atlas pulled the second Scorched Earth. Oh. Did Taka? No, Prisec, of course. Prisec applies a tag. The runner didn't shake it, even though they had plenty of money to. No, they didn't have the click to do it. Yeah, it's too bad. I think it was a good move to run in here and check the remote while the Corp was low on money. But you know what they say. Never run last click. And here we can effectively see why you never want to run last click. If she had ran third click, she could have shook the tag. We did see that mass commercialization come out of the Corp, which gave them enough money to use the first Scorched Earth, and then they Atlased for the second. Admittedly, if there were a lot of things happening here that allowed this exact victory to fall into the hands of the Corp. They already had an Atlas token, they already had a Scorched Earth in hand, they had exactly enough money off the back of mass commercialization to get the money they needed for Scorched Earth. Scorched Earth. You think it'd be easier to say. But yeah, that's something we got to keep in mind while we're watching these games. Scorched Earth is back. So a single tag is all it takes to take 4 meat damage. Ugh. What a world we live in. I can only hope Nisei readjusts this sometime soon. Alright, let's see a new game here. Cyber... my apologies. Alice Merchant, Clan Agitator versus the Outfit. Alice a little bit like... how would you describe her? I don't know. She basically just wants to run archives and trash a card each turn. I think in my head, for some reason, I want to compare her to Noise. That's not really true. It's probably just her interaction with archives. Noise, of course, wanted to install viruses. Regardless, the outfit just wants to move fast and move big, gaining bad publicity in an attempt to gain even more money than normal and rush out agendas or kill the runner before that bad publicity ever starts mattering. Now, the outfit having a ton of money here and plenty of ice on the table, a little frustrating for Alice because she just wants to get into archives to force that trash. However, with the Corp having 22 credits and there being an ice on archives, she knows she probably needs a breaker or two before she can start running wild. We already see MK Ultra in the bin, so at least a killer is available should she need it. The outfit naked installs a card and clicks for 2 credits. It's confident. Something to consider, though, is this bad pub, actually 2 bad pub, that Alice already has, makes all assets that much cheaper to trash. So she just wanted to check this. If it was an asset that she could trash, it would be 2 credits cheaper already to get rid of. I'm a little curious why she didn't check this server for that reason. But instead she decided to get set up even more here. We see a Trickster Taka, and on the lamb, that might be pretty relevant actually, on the lamb. It'll prevent 3 of the 4 meat damage from a Scorched Earth. Alternatively, you could also just use it to prevent the tags that are required for Scorched Earth. Yeah, but whatever that card is in the server ended up not mattering this turn. Corp just decided to hedge fund and double draw. They're trying to move fast. Usually a Corp doesn't draw unless they're specifically trying to gain some forward momentum of some kind. And even then, it's usually they're digging for ice or agendas. I mean, riveting commentary, Chesney. Yes, drawing cards means you're looking for cards. Fascinating. But I think in general you knew what I meant. Hippo hits the table. It's going to allow Alice to thin the ice of any server with an outside res piece of ice. Of course, a common counter to Hippo is for the Corp to install a bunk piece of ice on the outside and never res it, effectively denying Hippo to be used on that server. So the Corp puts an ice in a new remote but doesn't put anything behind it, gaining from all of their previous actions, or rather having gained several credits, 30 credits. But Alice is catching up. Lib accounts hits the table. She got 17. Another naked asset agenda something hits the table for Waylon, but back over on Alice's turn, she decides to contest R&D. And then goes to undo the click. Did she mean to run archives? Oh, my apologies. The Corp undid the click. They wanted to res the ice, and that makes a lot more sense, because when you look at the money the Corp has, there's almost no reason not to res whatever is going on here. We see Colossus, very strong ice. It is resed immediately, hippoed, after being taken out by MK Ultra. A little expensive sacrifice to Hippo, really. But it's not like the Corp doesn't have the money to do it. And you got to get rid of those hippos one way or the other, right? You either have to have enough ice in your Corp deck that you can sacrifice an unres piece of ice on the outside, or you just bite the bullet knowing that the game can only contain 3 hippos total. Problem is Parasite's back in the game. I don't know if This is all very interesting. Alice kind of creates this interesting pressure game, right? Because I think Alice is running R&D not because she wants to get into R&D, but she's just trying to force the corp to take action. Because probably where she wants is archives. But kind of a general rule as runner is never run where you actually want to run first. Always run there second. Because one of two things is going to happen. You're going to get a free run somewhere else where the corp isn't going to res ice because they actually want to keep you out of a different location, or the corp reses ice where you don't want to be, and then you just go run where you want to be, and the corp has that fewer amount of credits to contest you. Now again, though, the outfit has a lot of money here, and so they probably can res all this ice anyway. But Alice does hit a bulwark, which unfortunately does give the runner 4 more bad pub credit. Or sorry, what am I saying? 4? Another bad pub credit. And it does trash. What did we trash? Did we trash the MK Ultra? I think we trashed the MK Ultra, but it got reinstalled on this run on HQ, where we see a trebuchet where the corp hands another bad pub over to Alice and a mausolus. So Alice has 4 free credits on every run right now. She does go ahead and install the breakers and pay the money to get into HQ. Sees a hard-hitting news. Oh no. Oh no. Clicks up for 2 credits. Yeah, that makes sense. Alright, so hard-hitting news very likely going to come out. Well, I don't know about likely, because On the Lam can prevent it. Kind of. Sort of. Not really. Even if On the Lam is used, the runner's still going to take 1 tag. But you can't hard-hitting news into Scorched Earth, so even if the corp does do that, it's still going to get passed over to the runner, who could click for 2 credits and take the tag off, or not even needed to click for 2 credits. Oh, but they're going to go for it anyway. We see an install in a naked remote, click for a credit, and then we do see hard-hitting news. Now the corp is going to need to pay 4 credits, I believe, to make sure this sticks. Interestingly, they might not even want to pay the 4 credits. They could just pay 3 and give the runner a choice. Spend all your money or take all these tags anyway. But no, the corp does boost by 4. The runner uses On the Lam to prevent 3 of them and shakes the other one by 2 credits and a click. And another On the Lam. Ah, that's gotta be frustrating as the corp. But the corp did gain a little bit of tempo. I mean, they lost 7 credits, though, to do that. It's tough, right? Like, it kind of looks good in theory, because you're like, oh, yeah, you got rid of an On the Lam. You wasted the runner's money. But at the same time, the corp didn't gain any forward tempo from that, either. In fact, they lost tempo. And they had to spend their next turn clicking up for 3 credits. Regardless, on their next turn, they decide to go ahead and install a new remote, draw in another new remote. A lot of remotes on the table. We don't even know what these are yet. It's just such a well-timed On the Lam. I'm still thinking of that, how the On the Lam was used and immediately it came right back out. And unless the corp runs recursion, assuming that both the Corp runs 3 hard-hitting newses and the Runner runs 3 on the lambs, the Corp won't be able to chew through them all, because at which point they've run out of hard-hitting newses themselves. Alice throws down a hippo and finally decides to go for archives. Corp doesn't even bother rezzing it. Knows that Alice is coming in. She has the bad publicity. And even if the Corp rezzes it, it's just going to get hippoed. The Runner admits they forgot they had 4 bad publicity to play around with. So instead of an archives run, she's actually going straight into HQ with a forked. Gonna allow the trash of a sentry. I wonder if the plan here is to fork to the trebuchet and then hippo the mausolus, but she doesn't have the money for that, does she? Regardless, Elizabeth Mills is rezzed, which lowers the Corp's bad pub by 1. Did that actually affect... Should that actually have affected the bad publicity mid-run, though? I don't know. I feel like that's one I'd need to look up. Based on the reaction of the Runner, it seems that it did. Oh well. Regardless, Trebuchet does get forked. We finally see some of these cards rezzed by our Corp friend before hard-hitting newsing. The Runner, who of course uses on the lamb to break, or rather prevent 3 of those tags, and then shakes the last tag. Now theoretically, if by chance the Corp draws a 3rd hard-hitting news before the Runner is able to throw down an on the lamb of their own, there's a small window or a small chance of there being tags present in this game in a meaningful way, but we'll just have to wait and see. Alice goes ahead and pops, what's it called? Trope. Shuffles quite a few cards from their discard back into their deck. A lot of this looks like money, and both on the lambs. Yeah, just mostly money and both on the lambs. Forked also comes back in. Another install double advance for the second hostile takeover, giving 5, count them, 5 bad pub over to Alice. And you have to wonder, as this game reaches turn 13, if the outfit didn't move quick enough in this game. Because those bad pub credits are really going to start just letting the Runner do whatever they want to do right now. Wanton Destruction pierces the mausolus on HQ, or rather, a Wanton Destruction run, and then, of course, the ice is pierced by Black Orchestra. Hits HQ, spends 3 clicks to trash 3 cards from HQ, straight into the bin. We haven't seen a ton of agendas scored by the Corp, so there's a decent chance that some of these cards are agendas. So in a way, the Wanton Destruction is a little bit like the Anarch legwork that you often see criminals play. And here we see another piece of ice on archives, which does signify that there are agendas in archives right now. Alice is poor, though. And I missed this interaction, but actually earlier, spoilers triggered off of this hostile takeover, which is why we see these two cards trashed into archives. Anson Rose. Whenever you res a piece of ice, you may move any number of advancement tokens from Anson Rose to that ice. That's interesting, but again, with all the bad pub Alice has, she can just come in here and trash these cards for free. She could just trash Anson Rose. See, the trick about Anson Rose is you're supposed to put a piece of ice in front of him that you can move all of those advancement tokens to when the runner comes in to try to trash Anson Rose. But without a piece of ice in front of the server, you can't do that. I know I didn't comment on it earlier, but Munbad Construction Co. here has also been accumulating an advancement tokens on it, effectively allowing the Corp to fast advance whenever they want at the cost of 2 credits per advancement token. I'm a little bit confused why. You can see, we're going to see it right here. We're going to see Munbad Construction Co. dump, I'm sure, a bunch of advancement tokens here on this card in Server 3. Although we're seeing a stall, I don't know what the pause is for. Perhaps this isn't an agenda, or maybe the Corp is just making sure that they're making good choices? I don't know. No, there it goes. We see an advancement token move to Mausolus. The runner says good game, but I'm not sure why. What? Clearly I'm missing something. Oh, quick shout out to the pad campaign. How did I miss this? I love this. Pad campaign is such a humble card. But it's a good card, you know? Just solid. Why were there 3 advancement tokens moved off of Munbad? What? I must be missing something. Move 1 advancement token from Munbad Construction Code to a face-up card. That was a very expensive way to triple advance Mausolus. What is happening in this game? Okay, so we see a run on R&D, a knifed run. We're going to break that with Paperclip, helped offset, Trickster Taka helping offset the cost, in addition, of course, to the 5 bad pub. Finally, here we go. This is what we should have seen eons ago. Alice is running in here with her bad pub, and is just going to trash this. Now, the Corp is, for some goofy reason, decide. Oh, wait a minute. Is this a government takeover? I think this is a government takeover strat. The Corp moved all of those advancement tokens to this piece of ice because they know this piece of ice is safe. Because it's on the inside. And they're probably going to try to Red Planet Courier 9, it's 9, right? 9 advancement tokens onto a single government takeover for the win. So they don't care where these advancement tokens go. They just need to have advancement tokens on something. But even then, it's still a good idea for the runner to do what they did, which is they ran the Munbad Construction Co., forcing the Corp to spend the money to move those tokens, and then they trashed it for free with the bad pub. And realistically, I don't know if there's a reason as the runner why you wouldn't just sweep all these cards off the table. And I would attempt to get rid of this Mausolus if I could. Now we've seen a forked. We also have seen a knifed. No, we haven't seen a spooned. I believe spooned is the one that kills code gates. But as long as the corp doesn't res this piece of ice, it can't be hippoed. And Mausolus couldn't be hippoed, but 2 hippos are gone already. And because I think right now what I'm afraid of as the runner is the government takeover win. But no, we see yeah, we see a lib account hit the table. This is confusing me so much because again, you as Alice, you just run in here and you hit both of these pad campaigns for free. Is she worried about the hard-hitting news? And that's the only thing I can think of right now. But there are 2 hard-hitting newses already in the bin. She has an on the lam. Okay, well, maybe that's all it was. Maybe it literally was fear of the hard-hitting news. And she wasn't willing to take that chance. That chance that the corp had a 3rd copy, or maybe even had an archived memories, and could pull that out of the bin and hard-hitting news her if she runs. But even then, what? You just make sure you have 8 credits, right? So if you do get hard-hitting news, you can just shake them all on the next turn. Anyway, we do see the spooned, which is great. Now, Anson Rose dumps all those advancement tokens on, was it Bulwark? No, it wasn't Bulwark. It was, oh, here it is, Colossus, of course. Now, Spooned does break that Mausolus, so that's more advancement tokens down the bin for the runner's benefit. We even see the, oh my goodness. And there's the score of Government Takeover for on the runner's side. So indeed, that probably was the plan from the corp. It was to shuffle around these advancement tokens until eventually they could score the Government Takeover. A lucky run on HQ. Because again, I think the main benefit of that run was to kill the Mausolus. But it had the side effect of also pulling, I believe it was a 1 in 5. We saw a 1 in 5 pull of Government Takeover, which kind of just cements the game in the runner's favor at this point. The runner has, 5 bad pub. They've trashed quite a bit of the corp's ice, so the corp doesn't have the best of defenses right now. The runner is a bit poor, but it just doesn't matter because they're getting 5 credits every time they run. I mean, what turn is it? We're in turn 19. Imagine a world where the runner comes in here and trashes this pad campaign. I don't remember the first turn it was installed. Let's just check here. Oh, what is this? Turn 12. Okay, that's not as early as I thought. Still though, that's 7 credits minus the 2 for the res cost. So 5 credits. So I think it would be worth it to run it to make the corp 5 credits cheap, poor. Especially because at each and every turn that keeps ticking is just going to make that disparity of cash even bigger. Dirty Laundry run into R&D sees nothing stealable, at least. And then finally the run on Archives is going to show an Enquête. And this is probably the game-winning move, because we're fairly confident there's at least one agenda in here. So if Alice can make it through and actually hit Archives, they only need one more point to win. Anyway, Enquête does have 3 advancement tokens on it, so the runner can only break one of these. They choose to use Paperclip to break the End the Run sub. Was not expecting that. And hits a Hadrian's Wall. Does he have the money, though, to break it? Oh, yeah, easily. Hadrian's Wall isn't that bad for Paperclip. It's, what, 6 credits? Seven credits. No, just 6, right? Because you just pay 6 and... yeah. Anyway. In spite of Hadrian's Wall, which was surprising, the runner makes it through. We're going to see what's in Archives. The Corp looks at their deck for some reason. I don't know why they don't just let the run come through. This is probably game. One would have to assume. There we go. Vanity Project from Archives for the win. Okay, well. There's actually another Vanity Project in there. That's rough. All in all, the runner did make enough correct choices to pull the game into their favor. I really don't understand. Again, I know I've been saying it the entire game. I just don't understand why these assets were left on the table. This outfit deck clearly wanted to go for a Scorched Earth win. We see that right here. He wanted to make a lot of money really quickly in the early parts of the game and try to outtrace the runner and then Scorched Earth him. And then if that fails, they wanted to win through Red Planet Courier and Government Takeover. But it was all thwarted by On the Lam. Who knew? On the Lam is a little expensive. It turns out it's a pretty good counter if you have the money to install it against hard-hitting news. That's alright, though. We'll see maybe one more game. I think these 2 users, I think, were the Korean users. And I believe they were playing... We'll just go check real quick. I think they were playing in core format. Oh, no. We're definitely seeing an older format. Keyhole is here. An employee strike? This might be fun to watch, but let's see if we can find a more normalized game. How far into the game are we here? Is that Apex? Still trucking along. You know, I think that might just be it for the night. Jinteki does tend to slow down. It is the wee hours of the morning. That was fun still. We got to see some interesting games. I think if anything, that last game was just a strong lesson in why bad pub can get out of hand so quickly, and why you should never be afraid to take advantage of it. Not that it ended up mattering. The Corp ended up winning it anyway. Or the runner ended up winning. Do you see a new game open here? Maybe we'll get lucky. We'll give it, tell you what. We'll give it 1 minute. Starting now. It's only 11 for you, Dunge? We definitely don't live in on the east coast of the U.S. or the west coast. $11 a.m. You still got time to party. Oh, Central Europe. That's awesome. Yeah, before the pandemic hit, one of the guys at our weekly game meetups at I don't know what you want to call it. It's like a board game restaurant. I don't. It's a pretty neat place. Before all that went down, he I think he came from, was it Britain? Yeah, he was a big Netrunner fan as well. It's honestly still amazing that so many people keep playing in spite of the game getting officially shut down and whatnot. Maybe one day it'll get relicensed. Looks like we are going to get one final game of the evening. Smoke with her stealth breakers versus my favorite Corp ID, Black Tree Jinteki Personal Evolution. The just kidding, I wanted you to steal all my agendas the whole time ID. They open up with a hedge fund and ice on R&D. Smoke, turn 1 netmerkers, that makes sense, as well as a piece in our time. Whoa, we are going lightning fast. A Mushin Noshin from Jinteki plus a new remote server. The unadvanced card was a Rashida. Prior to that, we see a Prognostic Q-Loop and a Mantle. So plenty of stealth credits up and coming for Smoke. Her ID, the Mantle, and Netmerker. Now she just needs the breakers themselves. Now this triple advanced card either was a trap or is just something that Blacktree wants to hold around and use at a better time. You can never really tell when a card is Mushi Noshin. Genotyping was used. Interesting. The game's moving too quickly, though, to really comment properly on that. Dirty Laundry into HQ from Smoke before playing her second Mantle. I don't think stealth credits is really going to be an issue for her in this game. Nothing seen in HQ stock buyback. I love this. I love this. This is a Jinteki after my own heart. Stock buyback, of course, gaining you more credits per agenda in the the runner's score area, which just feeds into that "just kidding, I wanted you to steal my agendas" strategy. And a daily cast hits the table. At some point, Smoke needs to be careful, because oftentimes Jinteki Blacktree does not care about how much money you have. And I'm feeling a little nervous about how quickly Smoke is installing these cards. Smoke is going to need these cards as HP to face tank through all the shenanigans that Blacktree is going to throw her way. Blacktree draws and installs 2 more remotes. We have 5 remotes on the table, completely unknown. And a single piece of ice covering R&D. I love it. I love it. Hopefully HQ has nothing but snares. This upgrade on R&D could possibly be a Mwanza grid. We'll have to wait and see. And a 3rd mantle installed. I don't know if you need all these mantles. I know she's trying to get set up because in her head, I think the Smoke is kind of going into autopilot. Because she's thinking, oh, I need to get set up because I'm going to lose these cards to net damage, and if I lose my stealth cards to net damage, I won't be able to break ice. But look at the board. Look at who you're playing against. Look at what's already here. There's no ice. There's a single piece of ice. You don't need all this setup. All of these cards that she's been playing lately would be served much better as buffer against all the net damage that she's going to need to take in order to score these agendas. Let's assume that this Jinteki Blacktree runs a lot of 1-pointers, so it's not unreasonable to think that Smoke is going to need to score 5 agendas to win the game. And that's 5 net damage. She's only got, 24 more cards. A Dirty Laundry used? No! Dirty Laundry at this point should be saved as HP. There's no reason to Dirty Laundry here. She doesn't need the money. Anyway, she's going to use Prognostic Q Loop to do shenanigans and look at the top card of her stack. However, more excitingly, oh no! She hits the, or well, I say oh no. Of course, this is great for the runner. She hits a Philotic Entanglement. Very nice trump card for Blacktree to have. However, now that it's been stolen, it's 2 points. And yes, we do see the Mwanza grid, so this is going to be something that forces the runner to access a total of 4 cards, plus the Mwanza grid itself. It's just going to gain the corp 10 credits in total. However, kind of a bad roll, a bad dice roll for the corp, as the runner accesses 2 psychic fields and a Rashida Jaheen. So of the 4 cards accessed, 3 of them were completely harmless and just able to be outright trashed. Now this is interesting. I don't know if you want to run Psychic Field in a Blacktree deck with Mwanza Grid. Of course, again, Mwanza Grid essentially forces the runner to access 3 extra cards. And in a normal deck, you would look at that and think, why on earth would I want the runner to access 3 more cards? But the truth is that when you're Jinteki Blacktree, the goal is to overload the runner with net damage, force them to access a bunch of cards all at once, and hope that they access like a snare and an agenda that hurts them like a sting. And sometimes you can get lucky and just outright kill the runner like that. Sometimes it just means that they access a bunch of cards and you deal net damage, but they live. But the other side of this is Mwanza Grid pays the corp 2 credits per card accessed, which usually just means 10 credits, sometimes more. However, an indexing run into R&D allows Smoke to reorganize the cards in a manner that favors her. Now, of course, she indexes 5 of them, so she still has to access 4 of them due to Mwanza Grid. but she knows what she's getting into and can do this presumably safely. Hits a why are we running archives? Was it for the Netrunner? Yeah, I think the archives run was just for the Netrunner. Anyway, she was able to know that extra run on R&D was going to be very safe. Now, we kind of have a problem here for Black Tree. They have a ton of money, and this is the situation you find yourself in if you're using Mwanza Grid in a deck where you can't threaten to use this money somehow. Now, they're going to use a digital rights management to pull any card they want. No, I'm sorry. They search R&D for an agenda, reveal it, add it to HQ, and then they can install any card in a remote server. They pulled back House of Knives and installed this card in the remote server. So we have no clue what this is. They stock buyback? This seems like a bit of a waste of a card and a click. You would rather keep stock buyback in your hand as kind of a buffer, as a card that effectively would be a blank access if the runner decides to hit HQ. Plus, with the runner only having two agendas, it effectively becomes a hedge fund, which like isn't terrible, but the corp doesn't need money. Another indexing into R&D. Indexing is just destroying this Black Tree right now, because it gives the runner so much information to the point where they can just use this Mwanza Grid to the runner's advantage and not the corp's advantage. We haven't seen a single snare yet, which could just be bad luck. Could also be that the corp installed it somewhere here. Installed it somewhere here on the table. We know there's a House of Knives either here or in the corp's hand. This upgrade on HQ is probably a Mwanza Grid. Probably, if I was playing Black Tree, I would keep as many snares in HQ as possible, so the runner may not feel comfortable coming into HQ right now, which is why they're just focusing here on R&D. Why not? They have the indexings. They know what they're going to get themselves into. It's just generally safe for them here to hit R&D. Now we're going to pick up a future as now. It's still going to force the runner to lose more cards, but it's not going to matter because the corp has not been able to threaten a proper amount of net damage so far. Now there was the second indexing being used, which means we have only one more time we can use that trick, assuming there's no recursion on the side of the runner. So maybe the corp can kind of come back here, but why is there a Rashida in this deck? Rashida is a deck that needs forward tempo and card draw, but your forward tempo in this deck comes from Mwanza. Mwanza's going to earn you the money you need. So at this point, Rashida is kind of just around to be card draw, but Rashida is very porous, right? Or porous isn't quite the right word. She's very cheap to trash. So if your runner Mwanza's into it, they're just going to trash it kind of like hands down, which we actually saw, I think, already. I think that last Rashida, though, was preemptived into R&D. I don't like the Rashida include. I don't like the Psychic Field include, because Psychic Field won't trigger off of a Mwanza access, I believe. Because Psychic Field only only triggers when it's installed. It feels counterproductive to what Mwanza wants to do. Now, genotyping is just shuffling more and more cards. Pardon me. Shuffling more and more cards into R&D. You do have to trash the top 2 cards of R&D to use it, You get to shuffle 4 total cards from archives into R&D. We do see the 3rd indexing here, and it runs into a Koma Inu, but with after image on the table, it's going to be a very easy break. Cortex Lock only dealing 1 net damage if Smoke just wanted to let it fire. She is just going to pay the 2 to break it, though. Why not? And this indexing run could end the game, theoretically, if a very common include in Black Tree is Obokata Protocol. And I mean, if Smoke sees an Obokata Protocol and the other cards around it aren't going to kill her, she can just run back in and steal it for 3 points and win the game. Of course, we haven't seen an Obokata yet, but there are a lot of face downs, and any of these theoretically could be Obokatas. I mean, who knows, right? Just in general, I'm just disappointed with the trap choices. I feel like with Mwanza you want well, Breach Dome, but they got rid of Breach Dome, didn't they? Or is it still in the game? I'll have to catch up on that. Whether or not Breach Dome is... I'm pretty sure Spark isn't in the game. Or whatever the other Jinteki one that dealt damage from archives. Regardless. We see the run back in after the indexing. We're going to see a House of Knives grabbed. There's that Rashida just being trashed for a single credit like we were talking about. And yeah, the corp is filthy rich right now, but what good does it do? The corp has no way to leverage this money. Oftentimes, the Mwanza money gets spent on snares or... I mean, the genotype. I think this corp runs genotyping. Sorry, not genotyping. Gene Splicer. Which can be expensive if you have to manually advance it, but I don't know. I think I'd like to see... Sting is good. House of Knives is obviously good. Philotic Entanglement is good. Future is Now is fine. I think I'd just like to see Obokata's... maybe even Fetal AI. And maybe possibly some way to leverage this money. Perhaps through a trace of some kind. Like, what's it called? Intimidation rights or voter... It's the one that's referencing The Godfather, because it's the old guy and he opens up the cover from his bed and sees like a head under his sheets. I think it's voter intimidation. Okay, we do see a snare, finally. It's a little rough to install a snare in a naked remote, though. Especially, again, I know I just keep harping on it, but against a Mwanza, with a Mwanza deck, you typically want your snare to be somewhere that Mwanza is. So that either means you want it in R&D or you want it in HQ, because you want to overwhelm the runner. But that snare is big news, though, because here we see 3 more damage. The runner drew up, but the Sting score deals another 3 damage. Interesting, they use Game Changer to fast advance another card. Now, if this is a Sting, the corp wins. But they say they can't score because of DRM? Digital rights management? Wait, what's going on here? Oh, right. Because the caveat of digital rights management is you cannot actually score once you've used it. And the runner is suggesting that the corp changes it to fast track, which I would agree with. Fast track in this situation seems to be very much more in line with what Blacktree is trying to do here. This is interesting. I know I tend to be hypercritical of Blacktree decks in general, just because I'm irrationally arrogant and assume that my decks are better than other Blacktree decks, which is not true. But this is a pretty interesting difference between, I think, the way I like to play them and what's happening in front of us is the use of Game Changer, which is kind of like an alternative beneficial card when your opponent has a lot of agendas. The thing is, though, what would you game change? I assume this is an Obokata? An Obokata or something? Because you would want, presumably you would want a game changer or something big. But they only put 3 advancement tokens on it, which makes me think maybe it's only another... Oh, wait, of course, it's the Sting. What am I thinking? Yeah, so if digital rights management had been fast track instead, and they fast tracked a Sting, and then Game Changer to get the clicks to install it and score it, they could deal quite a bit of damage. 6 net damage, which I think they were trying to do. And there's really no reason to use digital rights management other than it's a little more mind gamey. Like, it's kind of a Jinteki card, even though it's an NBN card, because it's like, oh, did I install the agenda? Did I not? You know, where to go? But you can't score it, so it's counter synergistic to this whole Game Changer plan. It's still pretty neat, though. I don't know if Mwanza Grid needs to be in this deck. Because, like, why does the Corp need 49 credits? Especially because they have Rashida. Anyway. Yeah, even Dunshire mentioned the fast track would have won him the game. Anyway, I'm gonna call that a night. For any of you watching, thank you as always. And Dunch, thank you for your commentating. It was always a little more fun to get to bounce ideas back and forth between someone, and of course always have someone point out my mistakes. So keep it easy in Central Europe, and maybe I'll catch you later again sometime. Anyway, take care out there, everyone.